This is a small excerpt from my book in progress, the originals. I actually brought two sex stories, forgetting entirely that Lauren mentioned earlier her parents might be here.
They're my parents, not yours.
So I'm going to read the shorter one, though maybe riskier. It's his last words. Ernesto liked to say he was imprisoned under Marcos's brutal dictatorship, which was technically true, but way off track. Yes, he was in Manila during the time of martial law, yet in Ernesto's case, imprisonment lacked any radical credo or constitutional interest. He was detained when he was 14 years old under charges of forging a doctor's signature on codeine prescription over a period of approximately 9 months. This on account of a fiendish addiction to opiates. He liked someone to lick all around and just slightly underneath the porcelain of his testicles while he jerked off, which, as a matter of fact, so did I. It took Ernesto forever to say so, and maybe he never actually did, but I discovered the fact innocently enough one hot July morning at 3 a.m. after traipsing around that ceramic stillness for a sign he was still alive. The interlude was a mix of drugs and intuition. Ernesto passed out in my bed that night, drunk on 7 or 8 beers he'd been sipping since he got up in the morning, plus a half a Quaalude. A little louder? He cut the pill in half. Hold this. How's that? Better?
Yeah.
He cut the pill in two, slipped me my portion, and swallowed his dosage just minutes after he arrived at my studio apartment. The flat overlooked a dangerous stretch of boardwalk on Venice Beach. I wrote poems there, and outside the paraprofessional work I performed in a hospital basement, put all my energy into making a wayward home. Ernesto escaped Marcos's prison to join his family living on green cards in America. We'd known each other as co-workers at first, then as friends. Of all my strange friends at the time, Ernesto appeared maybe just by 1 or 2 degrees the strangest. It was noticeable. He was barely 5 feet tall, skinny as a blade of grass, and at 21 years of age, he had no facial hair or waist. He looked like a large child. Once, someone asked if he was mine. His face was wide, beautiful, almost metaphysical, generally impassive. He wore hand-screened t-shirts with exotic women's images on them and a green bandana that he usually tied to the side. It did not actually fit his head and often slipped to his neck. His drug connections were legendary and unsavory, and whatever mutual interests we held at the time, sex, drugs, punk rock, those activities felt somewhat virtuous and fitting to both of us just then. Ernesto appeared fascinated by the fact I was dating a gay black dude, Josiah, who moved in almost at once directly below me in my seedy boardwalk flat. My girlfriend, straight out of a Botticelli painting, lived in a large brick building on an alleyway just behind us. I wasn't organized enough to manage all this, yet I had nothing to hide lest any stray secret burn a hole in my heart. I spoke freely with Ernesto about Lark and Josiah. Ernesto did his best to appear to understand, and he seemed to accept something I did not entirely grasp yet myself. Ernesto even tried his hand at mediation. One time, when Josiah threatened to kill himself in the event I chose Lark over him, Ernesto smoked a joint with Josiah, and they walked it off outside. Ernesto frequently offered sedatives and hypnotics obtained through forged prescriptions to befriend the 3 of us. Lark cut him out as a result, and she would have nothing to do with me when Ernesto was around. Josiah, on the other hand, wanted Quaaludes, and, fairly desperately, to bonk Ernesto and me both. I am not letting you bonk me, I said. Ernesto was then living down the speedway and just around the corner in a flat prone to getting broken into. There were few things he owned besides a Scirocco. The car was often vandalized as well and pretty banged up. Ernesto treated it like his baby and took to vacuuming and polishing it up every Saturday, even when it rained. Unfortunately, his neighbor had a side-swiping habit, and Ernesto too often drove drunk. Those scratches and dings in a rear bumper that hung suspended just an inch or two above the ground on one side were never cosmetically recovered. On the night Ernesto would accidentally reveal his secret sexual predilection, drunk with a quaalude split between the two of us, I'd only just learned Lark was pregnant and planned to have an abortion. I suggested Ernesto and I drive up the coast and sleep on a cliff. We spent the evening indoors instead, not moving more than a few yards, squatting on the black plastic floor covering Ernesto was helping me to install in my studio. He spun the Fall, Scritti Politti, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, Celia and the Mutations, X-Ray Specs, all of my 45s, every single one I own, on an old stereo inherited from my father. In the process, Ernesto scratched each of those discs with his carpet knife. Occasionally, the music would fall silent, and we could hear the waves on Venice Beach rushing ashore, swimming like Runyon up the lava flow of sand. I withheld news about Lark and the baby abortion in favor of some grip on a simplified reality, fogged with that peculiarly male romanticism, ignorance, sprinkled with unconscious bliss. Maybe it was the particular moment of initiation, handling my first real job in a hospital basement, multiple relationships, and saving up money to leave everyone suddenly to travel the world. A month later, I left. And since then, what? Life? Today, I spot Ernesto turning a corner in a black Volvo station wagon. The wagon looks brand new. So does Ernesto. I snap to my senses and realize this is only a time-warped doppelganger for the teenage Ernesto I once knew. This exotic driver with a green head bandana is barely an adult. Ernesto, I think to myself, Ernesto what? It's a surprise to discover I cannot remember his last name. Sometimes a story need only make a very small point, and then it's over. Ernesto and I had a sweet closing moment together the day before I left. We held each other tight, took turns licking testicles and jacking off. Despite the solipsistic nature of our mutual sexual act, I suddenly felt a membership and a power outside myself. And then Ernesto looked me straight in the eye and told me I taught him how to love. I laughed and told him I doubted it. But suddenly, I required a rag to dab at my nose and eyes. It was clear he was serious. As far as I am willing to say, those words stand on a pedestal. They were not yet outdated, troubled, ironic, or self-conscious, although they were, in fact, his last.